Good morning, it's May 29th. This is To My Liberal Friends. Do we have three equal branches of government? And that's a question that keeps popping up with these increased judicial activism that we've seen in the first 5 months of the Trump administration. The Constitution set up a government that would have a series of checks and balances. The legislative branch would pass laws, the executive branch would enforce those laws, and the judicial branch would review those laws to ensure they're in compliance with the Constitution. But today we are seeing a tilt in those roles where one branch, the judiciary, seems to think they can encroach on the other two branches with impunity. In 1820, Thomas Jefferson penned a famous letter complaining that, quote, "The judiciary of the U.S. is the subtle core of sappers and miners constantly working underground to undermine the foundations of our confederated fabric," end quote. Now, I have to wonder what he would think if he were alive today and was watching lower-level judges make wide-sweeping decisions that affect the entire nation. Jefferson's letter was a commentary that the Supreme Court was giving the federal government too much power at the expense of state and local government. Jefferson felt decisions by government the closest to the people would be better reflect the will of the people and not those elites within the federal government who sought to impose their, quote, superior knowledge upon the average American. Well, what's happening now seems to be a reaction to those elites who sit within the judiciary, appointed to the bench by the political party in power at the time, and for the most part, chained to that party's political agenda, and so they attempt to thwart an administration from the opposite party. The problem the current administration now faces is an outbreak of what I believe the astute commentator Jonathan Turley has called injunctivitis, the practice of federal district courts issuing decrees countermanding many of the White House executive orders and the actions of executive branch agencies. Lately, those have included the President's declaration of ending birthright citizenship, cutting off funding for Harvard University, and ending support for National Public Radio, closing federal agencies, deporting criminal aliens, gang members, and many other things. In many of these cases, the federal court orders have been nationwide injunctions, meaning rulings that cover the entire country and parties not before the courts, and which go far beyond the normal limited jurisdiction judges have in their particular districts. Now, if not most of the judges issuing these nationwide injunctions have been appointed by Democratic presidents, and many of their rulings appear to flow more from the judges' differences with the president over policy than from a neutral application of governing laws. Now, I've been watching this and waiting for the Supreme Court to step in and make some final decision about this judicial activism where plaintiffs engage in what I would call forum shopping by filing cases where they would expect to be heard by a friendly judge. The court is expected to make a ruling within the next few weeks on the legitimacy of the nationwide injunction being issued by these district judges. Congress has even seen several bills introduced to ban district judges from attempting to exercise this power, pursuant to the legislative branch's constitutional powers to limit the jurisdiction of lower federal courts. Now, so far, Donald Trump's been careful to follow judicial rulings, and indeed his administration has succeeded in getting some of the more outrageous ones reversed by appellate courts. But there's no doubt that he chose to substitute his lawyer's determination for those of hostile district judges. The mainstream media would declare a constitutional crisis and calls for impeachment would reverberate from Democrats. In fact, we've already seen one Democratic congressman introduce a resolution of impeachment only to have that shot down by his own party members. They've realized the folly of such an action. Donald Trump has shown in his social media that he's angry with the courts, and I understand his frustration. In my opinion, we are in a constitutional crisis, but not the one the Democrats and their friends in the liberal media keep crowing about. The framers of the Constitution envisioned energy in the executive when it came to major policy decisions. The most important branch of the government they created was the legislative branch, since it was directly responsible to the people. But they never conceived of lower-level judiciary judges engaging in blatant political decisions. Chief Justice John Roberts has said there should be no such thing as Obama judges or Biden judges or Trump judges, but he's being a bit naive about the political leanings of these appointed judges. They were appointed by presidential administrations because of their political beliefs, and now they are using their positions to impose their beliefs over those of the current executive officer. It's now time for the Supreme Court to issue a powerful statement on the power of these district judges. The court can resolve this question and reinvigorate the political question doctrine, which was a means of preserving the discretion of the Constitution guaranteed to the executive and legislative branches as well as to the states. Either the Supreme Court will now shoulder the responsibility necessary to preserve the Constitution, or Congress will rein in rogue district courts, or Donald Trump will have to do what Franklin Roosevelt once suggested, namely to save the Constitution from the court and the court itself. By that I reference a popular Democratic proposal during the Biden administration of packing the court. That's something I opposed then, and I still do. There's no need to do that because administration after administration would add more justices. But there's no doubt that something has to be done to stop this blatant form of judicial activism. It's been To My Liberal Friends. Thanks for listening, and if you have comments, please leave them.